Okay, so let's look at B work. Today A and B work are actually separate. I know I've been doing the whole like you do the A work and then you do this little extra thing as the B work. Now B work is actually its own thing today. So, which means I need to correct this. Bye. Awesome. Okay, so today what you're going to be doing is reading a short work called A Modest Proposal. And A Modest Proposal is an incredibly famous piece of satire. And we'll talk a little bit more about satire and what it is a bit later. But there's a lot of moving pieces to today's assignment. Mostly, I just expect you to try your best. Don't stress yourself out too much. I know there's a lot of moving pieces, so mostly I'm going to be grading to see that, like, you tried your best to understand the material, but I understand there's a lot going on here. So our instructions. First, watch the video linked here on the Irish potato famine, and then read A Modest Proposal by Irishman Jonathan Swift. You can also listen to A Modest Proposal right here. It's very important that you watch this video because it will give you a brief history of the Irish potato famine. So we are in the famine unit, and this is maybe one of the all-time most famous famines that anyone could note. The basic overview, and I still think you should watch the video, but the very basic overview is that the Irish were under control of the British, and they almost entirely depended on potatoes to be their food. That was the only thing that the poor could really afford. And there was a sickness that struck the potato population and rendered them just black and disgusting and inedible and would make you incredibly unhealthy if you tried to eat them. So people just started dying left and right. And the British, who were in control of Ireland at the time, did very, very, very little to help, to say the absolute least. So watch that video, get that history, and then you will read through this piece called A Modest Proposal, which addresses a possible solution to the problems presented by the Irish potato famine. You'll start to get an idea of what the tone of this is pretty quickly, I think. But it's important to remember it's by Jonathan Swift, and Jonathan Swift is a very famous Irish author. So he is not British, he is Irish, and that should help you figure out like what he's actually trying to do here. So you will read through. It's about 3 pages. And then you will get to these analysis questions. So answer the following questions using complete sentences. Make sure you have watched today's instructional video so you understand what satire is. Okay, so I am here to tell you about satire. You can also do some Googling and some YouTubing, but I think the most simple, basic way I can explain satire is that you are using exaggeration and parody and hyperbole. Hyperbole is exaggeration. To criticize something. So I don't know if you've ever watched the Colbert Report or any number of different comedy sketches where someone pretends to be someone else and exaggerates their actions, all to make fun of that person who they are impersonating or exaggerating, right? So if you wanted to do a satire of me, of Miss McKinley, you could walk up to the front of the classroom and say, I don't know a lot, and you could ramble on and miss your point, and you could say in the middle of talking, you could assign too much reading, all of that type of stuff. So what we have on our hands here is satire. An important thing to realize with satire is that the author wants to criticize someone, right? And so the author takes on a speaker voice, and the speaker is going to be like, that's the parody character, right? The speaker is the one who is saying these exaggerated, ridiculous, outlandish things. And the speaker says those because the author is trying to make a point, right? So if you'll notice in our questions, What is the object of Swift's satire? So Swift is the author. Who is he trying to satirize? And then there's this question. What types of evidence does the speaker use to support his argument? So Swift doesn't actually believe these things, is what you're going to see. Swift is using this character he's written, this speaker character he's written, in order to make fun of someone, and you will figure out who that is. So mostly that's what I wanted to kind of give you, and I'll add a little bit more about satire in here. But you want to answer some of these questions, like what is the object of Swift's satire? What is he trying to address? Like what issue is he trying to address? And who is he trying to target? Like who's he trying to make fun of? Who's he trying to criticize? That kind of thing. What types of evidence does the speaker use to support his argument? So again, this is the character. This is not the stuff that Swift wants us to do. This is the stuff the character says that he wants you to do. What advantage does the speaker offer to the Irish people with his proposal? Name at least 4. So you should make very, very special note of speaker versus author, because what Jonathan Swift wants and what this speaker wants are extremely different things. So that's the most important thing that I think I want you to get from this. Satire is a tricky, slippery thing, and it's how a lot of political art gets made. And learning how to read satire and see how satire affects main idea, and seeing that like we don't take satire literally is an important skill and a tricky skill. So do the best that you can today. It's these 10 questions. And if you feel like you don't feel super confident, feel free to contact me. I would love to talk through this more. But regardless, I wish you the very best of luck, and I hope deciphering satire goes well. Don't eat any babies.